the Mayor of Nelson, a former Member of Parliament, Cabinet Minister, and now very happy Mayor of Nelson, Nick Smith, and he joins us now. Nick, welcome to the show, mate. Lovely to have you on.
Good to be with you, Michael, and look, I welcomed your comments about the tragedy that's occurred in the US and that change in tone of politics, that if we're going to keep things civil is a really important discussion that our community needs to have.
Well, Nick, I was going to talk to you about orange cones, but this seems more important. It's a worry, isn't it? Because we're seeing that rhetoric starting to play out in New Zealand on a pretty extreme level.
Yes, we are. I actually attended a public meeting by a group called Challenging Councils yesterday afternoon, a little community in Spring Grove. And look, these things occur on both extremes of politics. It's that politics of hate. And people will say those that, and you know, the commentary there was that all our councils and mayors are controlled by the World Economic Forum and all our councils and chief executives are corrupt and bankrupt and fraudulent and this sort of stuff. And I'm a great believer in free speech, but I also reserve the right to challenge the free speech and the damage that that does, where people truly believe that they will do. There will be, just as you say, those vulnerable, slightly fringe people who then somehow justify in their head taking a weapon and taking up violence. And I'm as damning of the attack that occurred on Trump yesterday as I am of the violence against Congress that occurred in the United States, which is meant to be, you know, one of the great bastions of democracy but is losing its way. And the lesson for us is just tone it down, be a bit more respectful. There are lots of people involved in politics that have differences of opinion. Let's not constrain free speech, but let's call out hate when it's there.
There was something that you would have dealt with in opposition, Nick, when, at the end of your career, when the government was proposing to introduce hate speech legislation to this country. I think you guys opposed it as a party, from memory, the National Party, as an opposition.
And I still do. I really worry about having elements of the state saying what people can and cannot say. The right response is actually to challenge it and call it out. And when people say that mayors and chief executives are controlled by the World Economic Forum, say that it is idiotic and that it's destructive, and it's not true. In my view, that the answer to this is not some rigatory response. It's about a community response saying, hey, that's unacceptable. That's not true. And ridiculing those people that make those sort of off-the-wall comments and claims that are just not true.
Listen, you and I have been in politics for a long time. We entered Parliament at the same time. We were also in Young Nationals. That's how far we go, back into the 1980s, Nick and I. But, Nick, I was just thinking, the kind of people that argue World Economic Forum, are they the kind of people that are likely to pick up a gun or a bomb?
Oh, look, you don't want to ever, point the finger at that person is the risk. But when the rhetoric becomes one that is just so off the wall that you can see how people somehow get into their head of, in this case, a young 20-year-old who's been painted that message that Trump is so evil that maybe you can justify such violence. And that's why we've got to tone it down.
Listen, I don't disagree with you at all. The fringes. I'm interested in, though, this sort of this balanced approach this nuanced approach we need to take, Nick, which is, on the one hand, you don't want to impose yourself upon people. You don't want to stop them having opinions. And on the other hand, you do want to sort of make sure that the rhetoric they employ is responsible and sane. Sometimes don't we have to put up with the irresponsible and the insane, and the rhetoric that they employ for the greater good of democracy and freedom of speech?
Yes, you do, but just because someone has the freedom of speech to make these loopy claims, there's a duty for people to call it out and call it out for what it is.
Yeah.
And the other part, and the other part of it, in my view, Michael, is that we need to understand that on social media, what I observe, engaging with people and going to meetings, is that the social media element is allowing society to be fringed. People that are absolutely convinced on whether an issue of fluoridation or 1080 that theirs is the only opinion because they've been on a Facebook site and there are 300 other people on Facebook that are communicating with that view over New Zealand, where actually that's not the majority of view. And it's when they get that sense democracy is breaking down because all the people I talk to are anti this, and yet the damn government or the damn council are doing something different, and so as a consequence there must be a conspiracy. This is not democratic. In the old days where you went to a public meeting and there was a pretty broad range of people expressing views, you got a greater sense that, well, mine wasn't the only opinion. I was forced to interact with others. And there is a little bit of a risk for us in the media environment to make sure that we are hearing other voices. And one of the reasons why yesterday I chose to go to a meeting that I knew would be pretty fringe, but my view, you need to listen to your critics in these sorts of roles as well.
I'm interested, you went there, I can imagine the meeting. I've dealt with these sorts of people myself in the past. They're very much radicalised by a lot that comes out of particular US social media sites, as you've probably be aware, Nick. But on the other hand, they seem older in terms of, 60 plus, my age, your age. They seem as if they were old social creditors, and I don't mean to be nasty, but you know what I mean. I don't think they are likely to be anything other than people who voice an opinion. Do you think it's possible for them to radicalise a 20 or a 30-year-old who's more likely to be extreme and then to use violence? Or do you think, oh, wait on, even during the shutdown, for example, we had people trying to chop down pylons or 1080 people trying to sabotage helicopters?
There'll always be, the vast majority of these people at these meetings are well-meaning, good Kiwis. They often have a grizzle that's quite fair, and whether the grizzle's in the issue of road cones and excessive traffic management or over-the-top cycleways and these issues are absolutely legit. And councils need to take on board because both councils and government have got out of step where public opinion is. And
that's where we need to go to, and that's maybe where these people are coming from. They just express it in a different way.